Bronwyn Holm, I often talk to you about what's happening on the land and with the poor farmers of Australia. And today you've brought in two very important people who are going to talk about the use of fire ants as a sort of scare mechanism to take control of land in Australia. And the reason for that, Bronwyn, is this is happening around the world. It might not be fire ants as the ostensible problem. It might be flooding. It might be fires. It might be some kind of threat to bees. But the bureaucrats and the government officials are finding ways to control the people who are wanting to work on the land. So, Bronwyn, thank you for bringing these two guests in. And Ginger, I would like you to begin by talking about what's happening with you vis-a-vis fire ants in your land, in your corner of Australia. Whereabouts are you based, Ginger?
Located in the southern end of the Gold Coast, which is the Burleigh Heads area. It's in the eradication zone, so that area is actually subject to the prophylactic treatment, as in 100% coverage of the chemicals that they're using in the program. So,
when you say prophylactic, they come in and they say, look, you may not have fire ants, but we think you might get them in the future, so we're going to force something on you. How much of a forcing is it, Ginger?
Extremely forcing, to the extreme that I'm actually what I regard to be a contraindicated residence. I have a medical condition, a serious one. It's called multiple chemical sensitivities and a liver disorder. So I'm totally unsuitable for any exposure to the chemicals that they're applying. And in my efforts to opt out, which there is no mechanism to opt out in according to the policy and framework, it's actually just a case of each individual resident approaching the department and saying, hey, this is not suitable, can I opt out? So we've sort of created a door to exit the program, but it is absolutely a blocked process, which is really sits in sort of violation of our basic human rights, especially disability rights, in terms of our right to sort of have say over our own healthcare and safety. They're disregarding it, so much so they refuse to accept my medical condition as a reasonable excuse to be exempted from the program. So I'm currently locked in the review process for that to be resolved under a disputes mechanism. So how that pans out, anyone's guess, but they're doing whatever they can to make sure I am in the program, I'm in the treatment sort of 100% property coverage KPI, I suppose is what they want to call it, because if they exempt me and any other residents that have similar reasonable excuses or other reasonable excuses, that creates a gap in their boundary, which is their eradication and suppression zone. I refer to it as the kill box, of course, because it is a military-grade strategy they're deploying on us. And, yeah, so the less people they have on the exemption list, the more that they can claim they're going to be successful with the eradication program. But it's all, look, that's just what we're told, and this is our experience. So there's more to it, and then you've just mentioned that. There's a whole layers upon layers tied up with it that's we're exposed to.
Ginger, it's a nightmare listening to your language. I kept going back about 4 years into the pandemic, and it's almost the same pattern. I remember a mother who could not take another jab. She had a sort of asphyxiation from the first shot, and she effectively died and was brought back by the crash cart, wrote to Minister, the head of the health ministry, Bloomfield, and he said, don't worry, you must take the second shot, but we'll have a crash cart there again. It was this brutal forcing by bureaucrats of their plans, no matter what, and absolutely no exemptions. But it's almost the same pattern.
Yeah. Copy. Correct. Yeah. It's a carbon copy, for sure. In fact, I would say the fire ant program is probably the blueprint that was been trialled for quite a while. So that was the apparatus that was used for the COVID plan. So, yeah.
We'll come back to your story in a moment. I just want to get the overview. But Bronwyn, this is why you've brought Ginger. You've been traveling around Australia looking at how much people who are trying to farm the land in Australia are suffering from these bullying bureaucratic programs, haven't you, Bronwyn?
I have. And one of the things I have found is that the people on the land are being, I'm going to say the word, attacked, because we've got various programs of preventative treatments for the biosecurity departments. These come from fruit fly in South Australia, I don't know, chicken disease in Victoria, fruit. We've got fruit fly up here in Queensland now. We didn't have that. And that goes right up to electric ants, yellow ants up in Cairns, right over to Perth with various programs like the thrift and the borer, shot borer insects annihilating whole citrus trees. But at the end of the day, when you go to those places and you'll say, look, how did you go with what's happening? It's like, we actually didn't have any on our property, but you had the treatment. You had to cut down your trees, or you had to burn your beehives, or you had to kill all your chickens. Well, we didn't have any. And I think Ginger and Tanya are quite comfortable in saying that so many places that have had this fire ant poisoning, there are no fire ants there, and particularly in rainforest areas. And in fact, the tops of those rainforest trees have nearly all died off. They're just breaking off. And anything living in those trees are affected. Anything on the ground is affected. The fish, and even us. I know when I hear the choppers going over our roof at night, non-stop, in the morning, I feel like I've got acute asthma and my lungs are tight. And I know what it is. And I immediately try my detox programs. And look, it's all on, Liz. We are at war.
This is real warfare. So you're saying what they're doing, what's making the tops of those trees vulnerable and killing them off, are the sprays that are supposedly helping with the problems that you are saying don't exist. Am I right there? It's the
Correct.
sprays.
That's
Wow.
right.
Tanya, I want your overview. What are you going through? And then we're going to dig deeper into each of these. Whereabouts are you? What part of Australia are you?
So I'm in Benogan, which is the hinterland of the Gold Coast. So we're sort of like semi-rural. We're on tank water. We have basically been fighting this since the 1st of December 2023. We had bees. We were beekeepers for 8 years, and now we have no bees, because every time they would aerial bait, we would lose 1 to 2 beehives 1 to 2 weeks after the aerial or land baiting. We refused the baiting on our property, but they would bait the neighbour's property. And how our estate works is all the water would come from our neighbours onto our property, into our dam, runs into the neighbour's dam, and then down the mountain, the hill that we live on. So even though we said no, we still get all the water runoff of the properties that have been baited onto our property. And so what they're using is an insecticide. It's a growth hormone regulator. So it stops the breeding cycle of the larvae of the bees. So we were the least impacted. My neighbour up the road he lost 16 beehives pretty much at once after they aerial and land baited his property. But we would lose 1 to 2 after each aerial or land baiting. We used to grow mushrooms. We had so many oyster mushrooms. As soon as they started the land and aerial baiting, no more mushrooms, nothing. So we saw decline in birds. We're finding it impossible to grow things. And we were using Bronwyn's earth food prior to all of this. And we just find we're having problems growing things. even using, the microorganisms and doing everything. But we've been organic for 27 years. We haven't used insecticides, pesticides, herbicides, glyphosates, anything like that. We just use normal practices and permaculture practices to reduce pests naturally. So when they actually came with police on the 2nd of October 2024 to my front door, I was home alone, and the police officer actually had his hand on his capsicum spray with his clip removed. It was just myself, and I was presented with 2 police officers, 2 biosecurity officers, and I call them the poison team, the administration team that they poison your land, of 5 people. That it was all orchestrated to turn up at my property at 9:30 that morning. And I said, I'm calling my husband. He needs to be here. So that was actually really quite emotionally impacting upon me. My animals had become sick after the aerial baiting. They especially Mouse had elevated liver and kidney enzymes. Happy stopped eating, drinking, walking.
Are these dogs?
Yes, sorry, they're my dogs. Yes, they've got unusual names. Happy, his name's Happy. He refused to eat, drink, walk, so we had to detox him, heal him. My husband and I both experienced severe diarrhea, headaches, cough, really bad coughs, like deep coughs, which were persistent and long lasting. We had to do our alternative treatments to try and heal ourselves and heal the dogs. But Mouse never actually healed. I was working with the vet to try and reduce his elevated liver and kidney enzymes. And then a week after they enforced baiting on our property, all 3 dogs had paralysis ticks. We found the 2 ticks on Happy and Titan, my other 2 dogs, and then administered charcoal, but we never found it on Mouse. Even the vets never found it. The vet nurses never found it, and he died, which sent me into... I had a severe panic attack, and I had to step back from doing everything because it really affected me, because he was like my little man. And so his immune system was severely compromised from the aerial baiting already. And then, as we've discovered, using this insecticide blatantly over every inch of land kills the insects that eat the ticks. So the ticks are now becoming prolific and worse, and they're becoming resistant to the fire ant bait because they use some of those ingredients in flea and tick collars. So these animals are being overexposed to these chemicals, not only through the tick and flea medication, but also because it's being spread everywhere. And then it's also, the ticks are becoming resistant to these chemicals, just like cockroaches are becoming resistant to chemicals. It's the same thing that's happening to ticks. And now all the vets are reporting they're having an influx of animals being bitten by these ticks. And so we're seeing an ongoing effect, not only of animals, but of insects and humans and livestock and bees. And our dam looks like pea soup. It's disgusting.
Explain that. Explain why is it so bad?
Because it's got an algae bloom. So I've presented it to a forensic specialist, and he said the dam is reacting to an algae bloom from chemicals, and it needs to have all this stuff done to it, which is once again expensive, and tests and water tests. And but the problem is every time our neighbours' properties get baited, and then it rains, that water comes onto our property, into our dam. So it's an ongoing issue that we can't stop while they continue to poison our neighbours' properties.
This is horrendous. Now, just let me get this straight. This is for fire ants, supposedly.
Which we don't have.
And
Which
you
we
don't
don't
have
have. Because I want to make that very clear. We have professional pest controllers who have done the accreditation by the National Fire Ant Eradication Program. They come out, inspect our property, and they look at our whole property and they say, we have a certification to say we do not have fire ants.
When those police came to your door, which must have been absolutely horrific, how many were there?
2 police officers, 2 biosecurity officers, and 5 of their treatment team, as they call it.
This is what I've heard. They totally overwhelm you, and they're picking you off one by one. You brave people working on the land, just wanting to grow food for the people, and they are picking you off with these large groups that intimidate. Were they respectful in the end? You said that man had his hand on the pepper spray, which isn't pepper spray. It's a highly chemical, toxic mix. Did he didn't use that? He respected that it was
No, because he didn't need to use that, but it was still like
threatening.
They came with their bulletproof vests, with their guns, with their tasers, with all their armor, and there's just me on my own with nothing. It's extremely threatening, and it's scary. All because I wanted to protect my dogs, our bees that we had left at the time, and my family. And what defense did I have against these people with their weapons in front of me? I had no recourse. We just tried to talk to them and explain to them. We had so many reasonable excuses, so many reasons. And in the end, it was fait complete. They decided they were coming to poison our land against our will, and nothing we said, we did would change their mind. And that's what they did.
And even though you said we have no fire ants, it made no difference. What excuse do they give? Oh, you may have them in the future. So it's what Ginger said, prophylactically, preventative. Is that what they say?
And apparently they don't even wear quite high, and fire ants aren't found at higher altitudes. So it just makes no sense. Like, there's no logic at all. We have no fire ants. We inspect our property daily. We have our property inspected by a professional pest controller, and yet we're still forced to have this prophylactic poison put on our land for an ant that we don't even have. So the native ants then take up this bait.
Oh, and they're dying off. What is the poison? Do you know exactly what it is?
So on our property, they used S-methoprene, which is in a product called Engage, but they're also using a chemical called pyriproxyfen, which is in a product called Distance Bait. And then they also do direct injection with fipronil, which is banned even in China.
What? It's banned in China.
And you know China doesn't ban anything.
My God. Direct injection into what? Into
the fire ant nests.
Into the fire ant nests.
But we don't know that they could be using a bait at the moment that does contain fipronil, but we're trying to investigate that further because they're not very forthcoming with information.
So did your neighbours have fire ants in the area? No.
There is no fire ants in our area.
So when you say direct injection into what? Into fire ant nests that don't exist? They don't exist there?
In other areas where there are fire ants, that's when they use the fipronil.
This is so out of proportion. What is the neighbourhood doing, Tanya? How are they reacting? Are you all getting together? Can you, in numbers, have some effect on these faceless, brutal bureaucrats who are making these decisions?
We're trying, but some people, just like during COVID times, are just complicit and compliant. They don't want the police at their doors. They don't want trouble. They just allow their land to be poisoned because they don't want any problems.
That is shocking. There is a book from, I think, the 60s, and it's called Silent Spring. by Rachel. I can't remember her surname, but everybody should try to track that book down because she talks about the poisoning of the world. And when our bees die, that is the beginning of really the food cycle, because we need our bees. When they die, the food that we grow will not grow. This is, Ginger, when you hear Tanya's story, how familiar is it to you? What aspects of it are familiar to you?
Interesting. I'm on a suburban block, so I don't have the issues of the aerial baiting. I've got to face off the prospect of them coming on and intruding into my garden just with hand spreaders. So that's the difference with Tanya's experience. So hers is a lot more challenging, whereas I can lock my gates and they can't really come in. I have heard stories where they do jump the fences and do it, but the difference between Tanya and myself is that I can stand at my gate and be a little bit more of a barrier if I'm prepared to be arrested and face the fines and so forth, where for others who are on rural properties and farms, they have to run the gauntlet of the drones or the aeroplanes and helicopters coming over to bait. So, and that you can't stop. You can't. So their experience is a little bit different to, say, a suburban properties. So again, so there's those little bit of differences. I'd like to add to what Tanya was saying with the broadcast baiting, what the products they're actually using. There's quite a few trial products. One is what they call where the program actually involves multiple trials. The whole thing is really a big trial, and within that big trial is multiple trials. Now, they include the trialling of a wettable matrix. Well, it's called the wettable matrix trial, which is a product. It's sand or silica coated in fipronil, and it's supposed to be applied in the wet season when there's heavier rain, because it doesn't wash away like the other distance baits or the IGRs, the growth hormone products. And what it does is, and then for the dry seasons, they will sequentially drop it in the dry seasons with the traditional IGR, which was what Tanya was referring to, the pyroxafen product. So so that's broadcast baited. That's aerial dropped and hand spread on properties where there's no fire ants, whether they're there or not. So that is really deeply disturbing. You can't opt out of it. Nobody knows about this trial. It is written into their documents, into their Communique reports. So I do know it exists in there. The other trial is a GMO trial between CSIRO and the US military. This is the one that I'm concerned about, very much concerned, because it involves RNAi gene driver knockout technology, and you'll be familiar with that. We went through that with the COVID era with the mRNA vaccines. Well,
just explain. Keep us with your anagrams. RNAi. Do you know what that stands for?
Well,
another gene technology like mRNA?
Really, it's the biotech industry. It's the gene technology. You're genetically modifying organisms and genetically engineering DNA for the purpose of specifically tailoring a chemical or product or to suit a particular target. And in this case, it's a chemical product that's specifically targeted to destroying the enzyme or the gene that's responsible for the making of the enzyme that is responsible for digesting protein of the. So I'll reword that. It's the it'll knock out the gene responsible for making the enzyme that's responsible for protein digestion. Okay, so the intention is to literally wipe out the fire ant, the red imported fire ant species. But Australia has actually over 16 native fire ant species. 4 in particular are in this region in the southeast or in Queensland itself. So I personally can't see it being specific to red imported fire ants targeting. they're the same species. The studies are 50% successful, so they say on the Senate inquiry into it. So we do know that that's happening. It's disturbing, and they're trialling it on us now. I haven't found out if that's being spread as a bait or it's being used as in a hydrogel product, which I'm hearing they're also trialling. So there's a hydrogel product chemical that they're using. I haven't been able to track that down. They've only just mentioned that in the documentations and the communiques they refer to. But again, they're being very sly. They're not telling you. I've spoken to biosecurity. I actually asked about it, spoke to biosecurity officers, asked them what's happening with these trials. Oh, I don't know what's going on. I'm sorry, but I found this information in your official documents. This is not me just sort of looking on the internet. No, this is actually, I go to the horse's mouth. This is in your actual official documentation, your work plans, in communiques that are written by the NEBRA, which is the National Working Management Group, who actually oversight the program. So they're the ones that are actually responsible for the whole 100% carpet coverage, or what do I say, nuking of the 830,000 hectares of land that we're all impacted by and can't get out of. We can't remove ourselves from this. And I'm just, it's just deplorable. It's terrible.
I think a lot of people don't realise that it's the bait that's causing a lot of problems. So once they start hearing it, then, like, for example, our bees, and then my son was talking to somebody else and they said, oh yeah, our bees have been dying too. So it's not until they start hearing and they put one plus one together and they go, oh, are they baiting? Oh, they are baiting, because there's no signs on the street to say that they've baited. So people don't know. And they bait everywhere, nature strips, parks, playgrounds, school playgrounds, schools, everywhere.
This is absolutely horrendous. I mean, it's as if you are just being experimented on. And I will remind New Zealanders watching this, what's in these communiques is going to apply here in New Zealand as well, because we have a bill called the Gene Technology Bill, which is all about fiddling with genes and gene editing and GMOs, genetically modified organisms. New Zealand and Australia should be the food baskets for the rest of the world, because we don't share borders with other countries. We're completely surrounded by water. We could keep off, a lot of the incoming threats from overseas, and we could grow food when they in Europe or the UK have a disaster from gene technology, gene modified organisms experimentation. We would then be able to provide food to the rest of the world and put out healthy seeds and regrow the food sources. But instead, they seem to be doing their best to spray us. Now, tell me, Tanya, when you hear that, what are the powerful things that can be done? Have any of you in your semi-rural area or your rural area been able to fight back? Who is ordering this in your area? Can you get to them? Can you question them on those communiques?
We've tried to email. We've emailed so many departments. We've tried to email the National Fire and Eradication Program. All we get back is crickets, nothing. My girlfriend's even done a Freedom of Information request on the chemicals and the products that they're using on the pyriproxyfen. And there's another one that I can't pronounce. And all she got back after 6 months, and she was constantly having to contact them and ask them, where is this information? All she got back was on the S-methoprene from the Engage. She still hasn't received information on the pyriproxyfen, and that's with the Freedom of Information request. So we're being...
You're being herded. You're being just herded like animals.
We can't get answers. We ask, we question. So we had a show in the Mudgebar show, and I went to one of their... to the tent to ask questions. And I was actually asked to remove myself from the tent because I was asking questions. And
Seriously?
I was actually, Seriously,
Seriously.
I was actually standing there with Ginger to the side, not doing anything, and we had security forcefully remove us from the show, and I was actually assaulted by the security officer, which I'm now pursuing, just for asking questions. So I can't ask questions at a event with the fire and eradication program tent there. I can't email them or phone them, or because they're not replying to any of our emails, any of our information, any of our questions, nothing. We are stonewalled when we try and ask, and that's why everything we do, and I'm not the only one. So many other people have emailed the departments, the ministers, the MPs. The only person who's listened to us is Malcolm Roberts from One Nation. We did have Senator Rennick, but then he wasn't re-elected, so he has
Put
no
that
standing.
differently, he wasn't placed in power, because I'm convinced that around particularly our Five Eyes countries, they are fiddling with the election outcomes now,
100%.
simply placing in people who will do their bidding and getting rid of those who won't.
Yeah. And I'm sick of emailing these ministers, and everyone that I know has emailed them, tried to get to our local member, our local councillors, email, phone, trying to get meetings. Nothing. We are like stonewall. We can't. We created a chat group so that we could actually communicate with locals who were concerned to support one another. But it's like we're riding a wave and we don't know where it's going, and we're trying to find information because they're not providing anything to us. And then they just lie. They lie to the public, and then they don't back it up with any evidence or any proof.
Bron, this is just horrendous. You have been traveling around meeting many of these types of cases, haven't you? Many people saying the same. This is a prototype. This is a carbon copy of the pandemic cases. It just sounds so achingly familiar. People who feel powerless, who are being bullied, who are being given no information, who have no one that will listen to them with their reservations, who know that this is poisonous and bad for our health. Bronwyn, this is widespread in Australia, isn't it?
Yes, Liz, it goes from one side of Australia to the other, to the north, to the south. Every sort of area has its thing that they're attacking. For us, this fire ant, they now put it in a zone. So the zone now is from Noosa to Toowoomba to Byron Bay. That's now a zone. And it crosses two jurisdictions, by the way, so it's Queensland government and New South Wales government, which I find interesting. From the Queensland government point of view, the biosecurity seems to me, and Ginger, I'm pleased if you want to correct me on this, but I understand the biosecurity used to be in the Department of Primary Industries, and now it is in the Department of Health, Disability and the Ageing. So that's an interesting one, because it's all about for your health and your safety. In regards to a lot of the materials that are being used and trialled, they now have these plastic nano parcels, these hydrogel looking things, and they're like little tiny parcels of these poisons that they just throw out of the planes and drones. That means then not only does the poison have an easier way to scatter, but they take a longer time to dissipate, and then you end up with these nanoplastics all throughout that big zone I was telling you about, from Noosa down to Byron Bay. And the thing that I've also found out is they're all in breach of their permits. When you read a permit, it states very clearly what needs to be done, and they don't do that. It's completely every single part, and I'll probably get Ginger to explain a little bit more of that, because she's all over it in micro knowledge. the other thing that I also found out is that there is no authority. I'm going to say that again. There is no authority watching what is happening from the point of the application and the results and who is doing the application and how and the rate of application and the actual application management. There is no authority. So it's up to the corporation distributing the poison. And of course, it's in their interest, is it not, that the more they have to spray or hand spread, well, that makes sense, doesn't it? If you're a corporation, isn't it the profits that matter?
It's horrendous. This has been happening in New Zealand in 1080 poisoning, and people have been trying to warn New Zealanders for a long, long time. Those packages, Ginger, can they be, if somebody went outside after a drop, could you pick them up with careful gloves on and gather them and isolate them, put them in bins or take them to your dump or find a way to get them off your property? How big are these little packages that are in the drops with the nanoparticles?
I'm assuming that Bronwyn's referring to the actual baits. They're a corn grit soaked in a oil. That's the attractant that's supposed to attract the fire ant to them. You can see them, you can pick them up, and I mean, it was suggested that when the fire ant people, this is in the suburban blocks, of course, you vacuum them up or you put your sprinklers on so they sort of dissolve down. It's not encouraged because then you're washing in the toxicant or the growth regulator into the soil, but
which must go into the ground, into the water.
It does.
Under the ground.
It does. I mean, they've done studies, various studies. You can sort of. It's interesting, all the studies, yeah, they're often what I would call conflict of interest studies. You know, they're done by their department, so you can't guarantee how reliable they are. But fipronil has actually been, there's studies going back like it's for a very long time. So there is a lot on the fipronil. And it has a residual impact of 125 days in half-life in the soil. So we're looking at sort of half a year. So you lay it down in the soil, and it has seeps into the soil. It can and it damages all the microbiome, fungi. As Tanya pointed out earlier on, it actually causes resistance in the insects, or particularly ticks, because they have what's called it's the CP450 enzyme that they produce more of, and that's the enzyme that actually detoxes the body. Humans have the exact same enzyme. So this is the issue. Insects are very much like humans in a lot of ways. So, what harms insects is harming the human population indirectly as well. So when you do, the ticks, and also the fire ants are also, they have their own development of their resistance to the toxicant bait as well. In fact, there was the only environmental impact study I could find. There's none current, but the only one that I could find, and it was only a snippet of the original document back, and it was dated 2004. They found the fire ant treatment program was as harmful as the reefer damage was, supposedly, and it didn't state what the actual reefer damage was. I've never been able to find any evidence to see what they actually do that's damaging. Everything, again, is based on overseas studies.
Explain that. What's reefer damage? As harmful as the reefer damage? What's that?
The reefer, red imported fire ants, acronym for that. The fipronil, the treatment used, the three chemicals used in the fire ant program, the main ones are fipronil, pyroxyphene, and the S-methropine. So the S-methropine and the pyroxyphene are the insect growth regulators or hormones, and the fipronil is a toxicant. It's a nerve agent, hepatotoxic. So the fipronil is really the one that it's the fast acting, what they refer to as fast acting. It's the one that just kills them. As Tanya mentioned before, historically it used to be used as direct nest injecting, so they would actually get the chemical and literally inject it into the nest and destroy it that way. But they've now, because they want to get the fire ants eradicated by 2032, under this 10-year contract that's coming to an end, supposedly funding at least till 2027, that they've decided that they're going to put that fipronil in the baits, which means it's going to be put in, it was in the actual as a pellet, or now I found out it's in the sand, to add it to the program, because it's the only way they found in a strategic review that was done in 2021. That's the only way they're actually going to supposedly stop that or eradicate the fire ant, because they've acknowledged that the growth, the IGRs don't work. And we've got 24 years of that proving that whatever they were doing before is an epic failure.
IGRs are what? What are IGRs, Ginger?
They're the growth. They're the hormone or the growth regulators. They're the ones that are supposed to impact the fertility of the queen and her capacity to reproduce. So
insect growth.
Insect growth regulators. All right.
Yeah,
Tanya, just getting to you, what are you seeing in terms of the people around you with their own health? Let's go to more shared stories of the effects of these poisons. Are you seeing it coming through in compromised human health? You mentioned that the soil is clearly compromised. It's not growing healthy crops. It's not looking healthy. It's looking more dead. What about human health? What are you hearing in your area?
Well, I think human health will be more long-term. It starts with the insects, and then the bigger predators eat the insects, and then the bigger predators eat those. And I think that's why we're seeing a lot of incidents of birds, chicken. There was one lady in Benogan, they baited her property, and then all her 40 chickens were dead, and they were her breeding stock.
This is horrendous.
So it starts with the small things, like the bees, and then the insects and the birds, and then it starts going to the animals and the dogs. Talking about the dogs.
Do your plants not grow as well as they did?
Hardly. We have a lot of trouble of growing. We never had problems growing anything, like nothing. We would grow so many tomatoes and sweet potatoes. And like I said, we were growing so many oyster mushrooms. It was just prolific how many oysters. Could go out and I could cut them. Some were like 500 grams. They were like a steak. And as soon as they started baiting, nothing. No more.
This is a dire warning, not just to Australians, but to the world, because this is going to cause food shortages. It's, as you said, it's a ticking time bomb for human health as well.
Yes.
And more than that, it's this same pattern from COVID, where now it's coming out that the jabs were a massive mistake. Now, 5 years on, they're admitting, it only had 50% efficacy at most. So people are so overwhelmed, they've had to move on from that to try to survive the other onslaughts. Let's look in this last part of this conversation at what we feel can be done. Exposure in the media would be one very good way. Is legacy media in Australia doing anything on these stories, Tanya?
No, they are captured. We've tried. We might get one story out, and then after that, we don't hear from them anymore. It's only alternate sort of media sources like Ipswich Tribune. It was very few actually that are actually talking about it. It's like we're silenced. The only people who are really talking about it is people like yourself or any influencers, alternate influencers. We're not getting mainstream media are very hush-hush on this. We'll email them, we'll message them, everything, and they just don't get back to us. They just ignore us. It's infuriating. It's like we feel like we're the little mosquito, and we're trying to talk to people and email people, and we just don't get heard. Nobody's
I'm
listening.
so sorry. It's so dishonoring. This is what they've tried to do to us, make us feel small and insignificant, and we are not. We are very powerful when we come together. Ginger, what are some of your solutions from all this clear research that you've done? What do you think can be done? As I listen to you both, it feels more and more like it's a matter of getting everybody who's silently sitting there suffering or quietly sending endless emails. We need to get people together, don't we, Ginger?
For sure, definitely. But it seems to be not there. I've attempted to create a not-for-profit org and I got limited response for some reason. There's a lot of people who I don't know. I think it's all too overwhelming. It's a game. They live in the twilight zone. They're scared of the fire ants. They believe what the narrative says about them, which is all based on lies. As far as I'm concerned, I can't find any evidence to prove that they're dangerous or problematic. In fact, I've found only positive attributes about the fire ant. They're actually a good biocide. They keep the ticks down, and I've just found out they actually can keep fruit fly under check. So there's a lot of benefits to the fire ant actually being allowed, or would I say allowed to be established. So ultimately the solution does actually lay in having the classification of the fire ant removed, or what they call reclassified. It's currently classified as an exotic invasive species for eradication, and that's really what drives the engine of the funding and the National Fire Ant Program. It's an invasive species. It's on the list. We've got to get rid of it. But the moment it can be, if sufficient evidence can be found that it has become established, which there is a absolutely bucket load. I mean, it's obvious. The program don't work, they're spread around, and in fact, there's a possibility they've hybridized. That's a theory I've put forward and has possibly and has been from Joshua King, Dr. Joshua King over in the United States. It says is plausible. We just got to have that tested, which we're in the throes of doing. So if we can have these, gather the evidence to support the assertion that the fire ants have, shall I say, the reefer have become established. They've adapted to our environment. They've been here 30 years. They've more than likely been interbreeding with our native fire ants, which they do, so that's all sort of positive. That's show it's adapting. And when that happens, they've become part of the environment. Be like, to wipe them out is like going into getting a needle in a haystack and burning the whole shed down.
Yes.
It's absurd. It is just that they're being used. That's why it's not really about the fire ants. It's never been about. They're just the weapon. They're just the tool to sort of get outcomes that are coming from, international arising, apparatuses. They're actually treaties. It's called the Convention of Biological Diversity Treaty. It's actually is the overarching framework that is driving this this genetic this shift into our what's called smart medicine. It's smart pest control and precision medicine infrastructure or frameworks paradigm that they're really pushing us all into. Got to move into this genetic and all these genetic foods, and it's the fourth industrial revolution. It's actually that's a framework. It's been around since 1992. I was surprised to learn. So I've only just recently sort of learned about that, but it's been around for a long time. So really, at the end of the day, when it comes back to the fire ant, if we can just put forward a case to argue that they are an established species, and that relaxes pretty much this eradication of all the funding goes into it, and it rediverts it back into the local governments and with and once local governments come into it, it's really then up to the councils in the particular area where the fire ants are a problem for people. I don't doubt that they pose a problem for certain demographic, community members, those that develop allergy and so forth. So there is an element that have to be protected, but they are absolutely rare as hen's teeth, the people who are allergic in
Yes.
comparison. This is again the anomaly in the narrative. The costings that they work against is that 1% of the so 1% of the population is referred to as the impacted community. That's who they're putting the program out for. That's to protect these so-called 1% of the population in Queensland that if they get bitten, 2.8% are speculated or predicted against overseas studies to develop an allergy. Well, then that means if you get bitten, you could end up in hospital with an anaphylactic condition. But put that in context or compare that to the number of people who live with liver disease, who can't detox properly, who can't be exposed to chemicals and pesticides, have to, modify their behaviours and, live alternative lifestyles, eat organic, and actually, are very strong drivers of the organic food market. It's 50% of the market base now. And those like myself with multiple chemical sensitivities, we make up 6.5% of the population, people who literally have to avoid exposure to chemicals at whatever capacity we can, And so compare that number, it actually calculates about 1 million people in southeast Queensland and south of East Queensland who are actually not suited to be participating or involved in this program.
Or having forced poisons put on them.
Being exposed, and we can't get out of it 3 times a year in the parks and gardens. We
Everywhere.
can't go and walk down the beach because they've done there, all in the foreshores because, if we walk
spraying
on
is
the
spraying
we're
is
walking
horrendous.
our bare feet. Yeah.
It is. It truly is. We have a lot of glyphosate spraying here in New Zealand, and it's terrible to go out in the days afterwards. And often people get sick. One of you mentioned the terrible coughs. I think it was you, Tanya, the terrible ongoing coughs. And I know just about everybody in New Zealand in our winter we've just come through has had these deep, ongoing, persistent coughs. I am certain it's coming from what they've been spraying our land with. And it's a reaction to the poisons. As Ginger said there, Tanya, if it's at 2.8%, that's 97.2% who are not affected by fire ants. Would you like to give a message to perhaps to your ABC? Plead with them to put the story out. Plead with them to do what journalists should do, because the one thing these bureaucrats who make these decisions do not like, Tanya, as far as I'm aware, is they do not like the light of truth shone on what they're doing. They do not like exposure. I know that mainstream media around the world is owned by BlackRock, but ABC journalists, I used to be in TV1, I used to work in mainstream media. If you could use your positions to give these people a voice, please contact me on liz.gunn@freenz.org and I will put you in touch. And you can, and Bronwyn can put you in touch with many people suffering like this, your fellow Australians, and may I say, your own food source and the future of your family. Your water is being polluted by all this poison as well. So what would your message be, Tanya? That's mine to them. You really do need help to get your voice out there.
We do, but unfortunately, one of the ABC reporters actually personally attacked a few people like Sarah Maguire, Dr. Connie Turney. So, it's really hard because Dr. Connie Turney has been professionally attacked by an ABC reporter, so it's really difficult. There are people who are in the suppression zone who have fire ants, and we're not debating that. But we're just saying, why not treat the actual fire ant nests? And there is safer alternatives than direct injection fipronil. It doesn't make sense that they're broadcast baiting over virgin land that has no fire ants, where fire ants don't live. Fire ants don't live under the canopy of trees. It's too cold. They need the open space. They need sun to regulate their body temperature. Actually, what was really crazy, they had an entomologist come from America, I think it was in 2017, Professor Puckett, and he suggested baiting stations to the Queensland government where they put the bait in the baiting stations, like for termites, And the government said no, because they were made out of plastic. Now, we have them made out of plastic for termites, but they refuse the use of these baiting stations for fire ants. So we're just saying, we just want some logical, there just seems to be no logic. And it's just treat the actual fire ant nests and reduce the fire ant population in the areas where they're spreading. Stop treating areas where there is no fire ants, which is then killing all the other insects, the native ants, which are our best predators for the fire ants. And the areas they have been repeatedly baiting have only increased in fire ants. So the chemical treatment is not working. It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't.
I know it's not really an answer, sorry, to your question, because we have tried to reach out to mainstream media, to ABC, and we've just been attacked by them. So my message is treat the actual fire ant nests and stop broadcast baiting these insecticides and chemicals over land, every other inch of land where there is no fire ants. It hasn't worked. And apparently, reading Dr. Connie Turney's latest scientific paper, the fire ants have been here for 38 years. Where are all the deaths? Where are all the anaphylactic reactions? Where is all the crop destructions? Where is it? Show us. There is no proof. So it just doesn't make sense.
Tell us a little about Dr. Connie to finish. So she is really studying this. She's
just released her scientific paper that she's published with two other authors. So I'm in the middle of reading that. But in reading that, I realised that the fire ants have been here for 38 years and they've been trying to treat it for 24 years with insect growth regulators, and it hasn't been working. They're just, the fire ant nests are just increasing. So as Gary Duffy has said, if it was a pimple cream and you've been using it for 24 years and you still got pimples, you'd try something else, wouldn't you?
Yes. And there you have to look at the bigger picture, Agenda 2030, the fact that they want population reduction, the fact that they want our food sources to be limited, the fact that there really are plans to reduce our food so that there is some level of starving the people to get control. I would say to everybody, and I always now end all interviews with this, do not agree to digital ID. They want us on our knees. They want us in a digital prison. I think Ginger mentioned smart. Anything with smart in it, the S is for surveillance, M is for monitoring. They want us in open-air prisons akin to China. They want to have full control of us, and limiting our food sources is part of that. It's a very dark agenda if you read up on Agenda 2030. However, interviews like this are designed to wake people up to what is really going on. And I always end with, remember there are many of us. And the people who are doing this are only a few. They are quite insane, poisoning their own nest, poisoning our nest. But when we stand together, they will not win. It's just getting enough of us to stand together. So I want to go around each of you with suggestions of where people who are really feeling angry listening to this and wanting to do something, where they can turn. I'll start with you, Tanya.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
Is there a website you have? Is there a Facebook page you'd recommend people coming in to join so you can share ideas, although I don't trust Facebook? Or is there an X channel? How do you work? Can you get local groups together in your areas? What do you suggest?
So we've got the Stop the Toxic Fire Ant Facebook page, and we also have the Fire Ant Treatment Alternative Facebook page, which they're also on Instagram. But unfortunately, a lot of people still use Facebook. We've created local Signal chat groups.
Signal is better. Yep.
So when we know, when we connect with people, we will put them on our Signal app chat group so that we can communicate. So no matter what happens with the digital ID, we still are connected through that app. And there's others in New South Wales that have started groups on Telegram as well. So, but basically everyone has come together mainly through those two Facebook groups, and then from there we can put you into smaller groups depending on your area. And it's just about connecting and creating community so that you don't feel alone, that you feel that your voice matters, and being connected. And that's how Ginger and I connected, and I connected with Bronwyn. So it's all through connection and community, and that's what we are trying to create.
You're so dignified, Tanya, and I can see you've been through hell, and yet you have a real strength in you. You have a real inner strength, and I just ask that you keep your faith, that you will win in the end. And Ginger, I love your passion. I mean, we need this level of passion to say this cannot go on. You're clearly well studied. What are your suggestions, Ginger, for what people can do who want to help and who are feeling affected by these poisons, who are worried about their future generations they'll leave behind and want to leave something better? What's your suggestion, Ginger?
Certainly, if they can connect with our stop the fire ant, stop the toxic fire ant program. It's a bit of a mouthful there. Get on one of the pages and connect. That's a start. Certainly, become informed. It's educate themselves about it more. Do their own research. It's so important to be doing that. And really do not comply. I think at the end of the day, it's that same old, just don't comply with them and make it hard for them. There are ways to stop them and obstruct them and make it hard for them to do what they're doing. What they're doing is illegal as far as I'm concerned. And so we can't really make it easy for them. And the best way to do it is there's certain strategies they can rely on, which is to go through, to object, assert their rights through natural justice or procedural fairness. That is an avenue to delay the inevitable, or at least while we find the actual collective can find ways to actually tackle it at the more bureaucratic level, which we're aiming to do.
What about standing in elections? What if your groups can get together and
all those?
Yeah.
There are people, but they're all slow wheel turning things, and the problem is we feel like we're under pressure now. Like it's all we're losing pets and harming, and we're under duress and facing all these terrible things at the moment. But that seems like it's such a slow process. I mean, it's trying to do something that's stopping at the moment at the coalface enough to sort of push them back so we can get something more formalised and in. But they're the challenges we face, but we're doing it, and it's been we're slowly putting a huge amount of resources together. There's been a groundswell. There's more and more people coming in from the farming communities, which is great. The organic community, I think we've had experiences with nurseries closing up, so they're all being impacted. So a lot of industry in the southeast Queensland is being adversely impacted. So hopefully they will start to come on board, and collectively that groundswell and voice will come through and be more. And there'll be someone within those communities that will have the resources and financial capital. This is it. We're all just individual resident homeowners.
They're trying to do that, they try to make you feel like you are on your own, but there are so many feeling this.
There is a lot. There is a lot, a huge amount, and it's growing more and more. But as you say, we're aiming to get people into councils or government. As Tanya said, we had Senator Renwick, Senator Roberts. He's certainly on it, and he's been very, very good. So there are those networkings or
potentials,
tentacles out into those areas. But at the end of the day, you need money, and we've got to somehow get that up. I do believe there is a fund, GoFundMe to fundraise money for legal action to try and put injunctions and on the program. So there's all these little tiny things happening in the background that individual groups.
So really, Ginger, it is join the groups and get to know what's there. And if you can send to Bronwyn any research papers, that would be great. I'll pop some research papers underneath. I'm going to give Bronwyn you the final word here. What do you suggest? Seeing as you have this overview of Australians who are on the land or in the towns suffering greatly and feeling helpless, and as Tanya said, feeling like some little mosquito that's being totally ignored when we, the people, should feel like powerful voices. And the politicians who are enforcing these policies should be our servants. And it's been completely flipped on its head in the last 5 years. Bronwyn, what's your advice to finish?
My words, as always, fear not. I have had a meeting with Jared Rennick before I went off down south another time. He has a farm, a working farm in those regions, in the Gatton region, where the fire ant poisoning has been like non-stop. He said to me, "We need evidence." I had a phone call meeting with Rod Cullington, and he said, "Get the evidence." I have put this out in numerous times, 100, don't know how many times. And Ginger Bartlett has been that wonderful person in the background because I don't have enough hours in the day, and Ginger has volunteered to be that person who's formulating this collection of stories and affidavits. We need affidavits. These people, Rod Cullerton said he would look at this once we had this put together, and that includes a lot of the arrests as well, because all you have to do is just say one sentence like, "Let me get my horses off the paddock," and that's considered an obstruction. You'll be spun around and arrested, and we have evidence of that. We also have a billionaire in somewhere in the peninsula of South Australia who has quietly said, "Get the evidence, let's put it together." He would fund it.
So let's say to people, if you feel that you are a voice that is not being heard, go to your lawyer and do a sworn statement, an affidavit, and get it to Ginger or get it to you, Bronwyn, and we'll put your contact address below this as well, and start to gather these sworn statements of what from this interview is very clear is a major abuse of the people of Australia. It just feels as if you're being experimented on, openly.
You don't even need to go to a lawyer. I will actually personally have a template. They can fill it in, and then you just go and have to have your signature JP. That's it.
Yes. All right.
And then you can take a screenshot or scan an email down to Ginger. She's been quite a trooper in collecting. So we've been putting this out for some time, and we have so few that have turned up. Ginger, how many have turned up? It's like 10 or something ridiculous.
Oh, it's not even it's not many, and I've been quite amazed why it's been so slow. I don't know why the reluctance there. But again, maybe it's really their unsurety about it all.
So what you want, Ginger, is people to give an account of what they're going through. Is that right?
It's basically just documenting, because we've been anecdotally viewing on social media these stories of pets being harmed and livestock being harmed and all these arrests or incidences. So we need those stories documented on either a stat deck or an affidavit. And really because they are a way of, well, once you put it on stat deck, it's really it has value and merit. So when it comes to sort of the evidence that's needed to I guess take to, certainly as what Bronwyn said, if there's a gentleman down in the peninsula, I mean that's absolutely fantastic. So again,
a statutory declaration. That's what a stat deck is. All right, look, it's been really, really wonderful to talk to you. And I think what we'll do, we'll put some of those papers that you've compiled below. We will ask people to send, and we'll put your address, Ginger, to send their statutory declarations or their affidavits to you, start to gather the evidence. And if there are people who would be willing to allow this group to challenge what the spray program is doing, if you have that kind of money, please contact me, liz.gunn@freenz.org, and I will immediately put you in touch with this group. And thank you all very much for what you're doing. Where it's being done in Australia, we know that it will be eventually done around the world if they get away with it in your country. I really feel for all of you. It's horrendous, this period of history. We are going through such a dark period of human history, but know this, good always wins over evil. In the end, we just all have to stand up, and we must stand together. Thank you all.
Thank you, Liz.
Thanks, Liz.